Hi, this is Larry with ManCave Mayhem, and today we're going to be doing an oil change on a Suzuki Burgman 650 executive model. Now this particular model is a 2012 model, but this will apply to 2008s up to 2012 models, and I think some of the scooters before that will be very similar in the process that they're done. The motors and stuff haven't changed a whole lot. So I will show you the steps in the process to get this done and keep you away from the dealerships that charge so much money for something that's very simple and easy to do. So I'm going to walk you through that right now. So I'm going to go over the tools with you that you need. You're going to need a screwdriver, some type of pick tool, or maybe a smaller flathead screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver. You're going to need a 10mm socket, a 17mm socket. I have an extension which I like to use, and also a ratchet, and some kind of container or something to keep all your parts in. Some gloves if you want, some sufficient amount of paper towels, and a funnel. I got this big transmission funnel just because it makes it easier when I'm filling the engine oil. So we'll go on from here. We're going to take our Phillips screwdriver and just pull this out. So right here there's a little part that you want to kind of work out. Those are little catches that just are kind of a pain to get off, and that just kind of comes up like that, and you can slide these out like this. And be careful, there's tabs that you don't want to break off, but they're pretty flexible, and that's going to expose this. Now it takes a little work getting it off, and then you just slide that out. That's going to expose part of your motor. So I like to use this little magnetic tray, and I can just keep my screws in there and I don't have to worry about losing them. Got this one at Harbor Freight. And at this point you can see right here, this is going to be where you add your oil to the engine. Also in this process you're going to be pulling off these lower plastics right here. And to get to those, they're secured by a bunch of reusable retainers, little plastic retainers, and you have to pull up your foot rubbers. So you can see what I'm doing here. And I just bring it up to about here and let that dangle. Okay, these are the plastic retainers I was talking about. So when that's pulled out like that, you're able to pull this out. And when you slide it back in, this just pops down and clicks into place. And there's a number of those that are holding a lot of this plastic in down here. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. There's also a number of screws that are holding it in, but at this point we're just going to remove these plastics. And what I like to use is a little pointy tool, little like a pick or something, or a small screwdriver, just to pop that. And some of mine are broke. You can actually go online and get these really cheap. If you get them at the dealership, they're more expensive, obviously. Okay, so the plastic's off now. One of the most difficult parts of doing the oil change is getting the stinking plastic off. It's hard. It's a pain in the butt. All right, so we're going to be focusing on the engine oil today, but also this is the clutch or the transmission, and that takes the same oil as the engine oil. So usually what I do is I change the transmission oil the same time I change the engine oil, and it ends up coming out to be about 3 quarts of oil total for the engine and the transmission. This is the final drive, and that gear oil that gets changed every so often. They say 7,500 miles for this, but there is an oil seal that keeps the oil separate from the clutch and the engine, and sometimes oil will migrate from the engine to the clutch. So I just figured it would be better to have both of them changed at the same time. It doesn't cost that much more, and it's just easier to get it done. So that's what we'll be doing today. We're going to change both the clutch, which on this scooter is a wet clutch. The Burgman 400s have a dry clutch, or at least the older ones do. But this is a wet clutch. It's bathed in regular engine oil, along with this. And you got to make sure that the oil that you use is the proper motorcycle oil, so it's got the right additives for wet clutch setups. It's still a centrifugal clutch, but it's a wet centrifugal clutch. Okay, and this is your viewing window. This will show you how much oil you have in it. Looks like mine's super full, but we just got through riding not too long ago, so it's kind of, the oil's kind of expanded and all. Now here's your oil filter. It's a car type oil filter. On a car, you would probably go 3/4 of a turn. On this one, I think they want you to go like 1.5 turns. I'll verify that though. So this will be coming off too. In the book, they say every other oil change, you change the filter, but it's so cheap, I just change it every time. It's just good protection. Book. This is actually a service manual from Suzuki, and this tells you the engine oil and filter and when it needs to be changed. You know, you change the engine oil when it's warm, yada yada. The other neat thing about these is when you pull the cover, it has a little diagram there, which is kind of cool, and it shows you your fill and drain points on the engine. So the front part is the engine, and that's the engine and engine oil section. Then the middle section there is going to be your clutch or your transmission, and then the rear part is the final drive or your final gear oil. The filter, this happens to be a Fram filter. This isn't a factory filter, and I actually picked this filter up at Walmart, and it's Fram pH 6018, and that fits the 2008 to 2012 Suzuki Burgmans. So that's and it was a fairly reasonable filter. I think it cost like $6 or $8 maybe at Walmart. Some Walmarts have them, some don't, but our particular Walmart happened to have some, so I grabbed a few of them because, hey, what the heck, save money wherever I can. So we're going to go ahead and let that drain now, and then we'll get back. Right here is your oil drain plug for your engine oil. Again, this is the sight glass, so you can see where your oil level's at. Keep it on the center stand. You shouldn't have any problems, and you can kind of just keep checking and keep it between these two marks. You can't really tell on the video, but mine's just right at the full mark. So we're going to go ahead and pull that drain plug and get that. Okay, again, you need a 17mm socket for this plug here. We're going to put oil on this, and then we're going to put it on. In the service manual, it says after tightening 2 turns. So you wait till the gasket makes contact and tighten it 2 turns after that. So I don't know. To me, that seems super extreme. Last time I didn't do that, and I didn't have any leaking problems. You crank the thing down, and you should be good. But according to the service or the shop manual, it says turn after the gasket makes contact. You do 2 complete turns. And on this, it says tighten 1 turn after gasket makes contacts the base. So on a standard car, you would do 3/4 of a turn. So this is a little bit more, you're probably dealing with a little bit more oil pressure than you would on a car. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to put the new filter on. I'm running Rotella, which is not a motorcycle oil. I just want to say that. The Suzuki Burgman calls for 1040 oil. This is 540 synthetic diesel oil. It's designed for wet clutch applications, which I do have a wet clutch. Which is separate from the engine compartment now, or the engine crankcase. There's an actual seal between the wet clutch and the engine crankcase on this particular bike. But that being said, I've used this in the engine and in the transmission without any problems. There's a lot of purists out there that say you shouldn't use this in a motorcycle. I'm not going to get into a debate about it. I haven't had any issues with it. It's a reasonably priced oil. I would just as easily use Mobil 1 or some other synthetic oil. The main thing is make sure you use a good motorcycle oil that's designed for wet clutch application. Or if you're willing to take a risk. I'm not saying this is good or bad, but I am saying that this is what I've used, and I haven't had any problems with it. I've used it on multiple bikes and scooters and never had any issues with it. But that's up to you. Now back to the oil change. I've cranked it about a turn, 1 whole turn. It seems pretty tight. That's what I usually run with on this particular thing. As you can see, our window, there's no oil in the crankcase now. So now we've got the fill plug out. And this is where you're going to add your oil. So we'll start by doing that now with our funnel. This transmission funnel, and it really works nice because it kind of keeps you away from the bike a little bit. And so that's, I'll just start pouring the oil in, and as I'm doing that, I'm constantly checking this sight glass to make sure that it's filling up and I'm at the right level. So we've got a sufficient amount of oil in there. Now what I did is I started it and let the oil go because it looked like it was over full. I started it, let the oil run through the filter and got the filter filled up, and now this is kind of where it's sitting, so I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, and then I'll probably end up adding just a touch more oil up to the full mark, and then we'll be good to go. So that is your oil change for the Suzuki Burgman 650, executive or non-executive, it doesn't matter, same motor. Thanks for watching. Just remember, like, share, subscribe. Don't forget, I'm just a man in a cave causing mayhem. Thank you.